Hello, Marcia. Guess I had a few people waiting starting at about 2 o'clock, so a little bit of uncertainty about the start time for some people. This is the last week that we're going to do it every single week. We're going to be switching to every other week. As we discussed last time, I never uploaded that video. I just went ahead and sent out the word of the day to everybody because there wasn't really anything covered in that video that was any value as far as I could tell. It seemed a little bit redundant. So I hadn't really covered anything new. But today we're going to look at Active Directory. That's sort of the goal for this meeting today. It looks like it's just Marcia in right now, so I'll probably just talk a little bit about Active Directory. You see I'm sharing my screen here. I'm actually at the high school today, and I'm actually sharing a real domain controller that's actually in play with users and everybody connected to it and all that good stuff. So it's actual a real world environment. You may notice I'm still running it in a virtual machine, VMware, which works just fine. There's no reason not to. I'm able to host it on my computer. I have a pretty good computer here at the high school, and so I'm just hosting the virtual machine. Oh, hey, Marcia. I guess you got.
Hey, I did. My son lent me his gaming mic.
Awesome. Well, so
I do have a question for you, though. I got stuck on the first activity, and I can show you my screen if you want me to.
Sure.
What do I do? Press share?
Yep. I just stopped sharing, so now you can share yours.
Okay. Let me go back to this. I don't know how to do it.
In the Zoom window, you see a.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here. I got it. Okay, I want to share this.
Okay. All right, I see it.
Okay, see that it says the prerequisite failed, and it wants me to put a password in for the local administrator account.
Oh, okay. So you can't leave the local administrator. That's an important tidbit that you need to know when you're setting up a domain controller. It must have an administrator password initially.
Okay.
So can you give me access to your mouse? Do you mind?
No, go ahead. Whatever you want to do. How do I do that?
Control. You just have to click OK on this request that's coming in right now.
All right.
Okay.
So I didn't know where to go. I've looked through Manage, Tools, View. I just didn't know where to go.
Not having any luck with controlling your screen. Let me just walk you through it. If you click on the Start menu.
Okay.
Okay.
It's kind of slow, I have to say.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's why it was so slow for me.
Oh, here we go. Okay, go to where?
If you go to Windows Administrative Tools.
Right here?
Yeah, that's one way. Yep, that'll work. And then if you click on Computer Management.
There we go. Got it.
That's it. Prior to having Active Directory, if you want to make changes to local users' accounts, this is where you would do it. So click on Local Users and Groups there.
Yeah, I didn't know where to find it. I didn't know if I was supposed to go back to my computer or if I was supposed to do it in the virtual server.
It's talking about in the virtual server. It wants an administrator password. So if you click on Users now.
Okay.
And then Administrator, if you right-click on it.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Hit Cancel.
Okay.
And then right-click on Administrator, and then say Set Password.
Oh, duh. Okay.
And, okay. So I guess. Oh, right. Okay. I forgot. But prior to installing Active Directory, you don't actually do it through here. Okay. So go ahead and hit cancel there, and then type the keys Control Insert, not Control Delete, but Control Insert.
Okay. I did.
And it should come up. Let me see. I'm controlling this if it'll let me do it. No.
More actions?
Why don't you do me a favor and actually click on the Start menu and then log out or sign out. The little face, yep, that guy, and then sign out. And then now hit Control Insert again. It's not doing anything. Do you have your mouse locked into the VM?
Let's see. No. Let me try it again. Nope, nothing's happening. I mean, my computer's doing something.
Well, this is strange. Okay, so let me see if there's a shortcut that you can do to send a control. Okay, if you click on the button that says you're using VMware Workstation, click on File, or rather the little button that it looks like I don't even know how to describe it. It's 3 keys. Oh, it's right here. I can click on it for you. Come on. Yeah, it just doesn't want to do it.
What is it? This one?
That one. Yeah. For some reason, my clicks aren't going through. There we go.
Okay.
All right. Now click on Administrator.
Now, yeah. Oh, Administrator. Okay.
Yep. And then sign in. So now it's going to have you set a password. So go ahead and click OK there.
Okay.
And so it's going to make you set a complex password. So if you just use password 01, that's easy to remember with a capital P.
That's what I made the domain one also.
Perfect. So now when you sign into this administrator account, now you won't get that little error. That's an error that you get when you're setting up Active Directory and you don't have an administrator password. It really does not like that. It kind of screams at you a little bit.
So should I go back to the CNT 120 server now? Profile?
It doesn't matter which profile you use at this point.
Okay.
You can use the administrator or the CNT 120 server one. They're both going to have the same administrative control. I think administrator is probably better for this because it's less likely to be buggy when you're installing roles and stuff.
Okay.
So now if you go to add the role there, then...
okay, I just cancel that.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. Here we go.
Okay, so there you go. So you're all set. So now you're ready to promote it to a domain control. You see the little yellow exclamation mark. So now promoting to a domain controller is the next step. Once you've installed the Active Directory role, you actually have to promote it. So this is where you select your domain name and all that good stuff.
All right.
And typically when you use the .local extension, that's quite common to use unless you've purchased a domain from the internet and you need to use it for whatever purposes. But typically you just use the .local extension for most applications. Okay. Great. Now I don't have to install Active Directory. I can just let everybody watch you do it.
No one else is here.
No one else is here, but the recording, they'll see it on the recording.
Okay, cool.
There you go. All right.
It should it usually comes up. It takes a while. There we go.
It's pretty normal for it to be kind of slow when you're dealing with a virtual machine, especially, I mean, you never know. I don't know what kind of computer you're running on, but it's not a surprise.
I got a Dell Optiplex 790.
Okay, which isn't bad. So it's doing all right. It's not terrible. So you can always allocate a little bit more memory. It's actually, you know what, to be honest with you, it's much better to run it locally this way than it is to try and run it through the VMM because it's so stinking slow that way.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, even if you can get on, which a lot of people couldn't, even if you can get on, it's still like, can be very brutally slow, so.
Well, since they gave it to us free, oh, there we go. Okay. So we only have little, good. Okay, so I can hit install now.
Yep.
Didn't give me any little red dealies. I thought everybody'd be here today.
Yeah, I had people waiting at about 2 o'clock, but I'm going, what are they doing in there? I only had one student show up in the waiting room at about 2, and so. Waiting for DNS to finish, okay. Oh, it's giving you a little error because of IPv6. That's new to Windows Server 2016. They didn't have that in 2012 or 2008. I guess they didn't care as much, but now they do check that in the prereqs. Interesting.
This is one of those things where when you edit it, you just go fast. You speed it up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to switch back to my screen again.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thanks for helping me.
Of course. Give up remote control. And we're going to... yes. All right, so I'm going to start sharing mine again here.
Okay.
So I basically, today I'm just kind of giving you a brief overview of Active Directory. I mean, the book kind of does a good job, and I think the labs do a good job of having you install Active Directory and play around in there. But I just want to sort of show you the power of it, which we don't get into group policies today, but one of the great benefits of Active Directory is being able to configure the main role of Active Directory, I would say, is users and computers. This is the where you go to create new user accounts, and actually you do this in the labs, Marcia, once you get to that point.
Okay.
Create new user accounts and set passwords and do all this stuff. It's a graphic interface for that. Now,
okay,
you can do everything that you can do in here within PowerShell.
Okay.
So when you start adding a bunch of users, it becomes a lot quicker to
just to add them.
Exactly, to do them.
Just to type their names, yeah. And you go to PowerShell through the Start menu again?
Yep.
Okay.
So PowerShell through the Start menu. So if you use PowerShell to add users, you can do hundreds of users in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a database of users and it just creates the commands for you. So like you can get from accounting, the account or the HR department, you can go to get a list of all of your employees' names or something like that.
Right.
I'll send it to you with all the information, and you can use that to create commands that go through and create all your users for you. And so it simplifies the process to do it in PowerShell.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the Active Directory role installed before you can create users in PowerShell. So, but
Okay.
the command that you use for that is actually user. Let's see. And then here are the arguments for it. So you can make all these different changes. You can set once you type in the username. So like for instance, if I wanted to create a user here, let's just say net user, and the username is going to be I don't know.
Betty Baker.
Yeah, there we go. Betty Baker. Let's
There
just
you
do Betty.Baker.
Okay.
Do some kind of it's a good plan when you're creating your users or doing this kind of thing to keep some level of consistency. Then you would set the password. I don't think you need that argument. I think you just immediately can put in the password.
Don't you have to type add?
Nope, that's after the password. So if you want to put in your password,
Oh,
you put in,
password, that's the top line?
yep,
Okay.
you go username, password, options, and then
Okay. Okay, got it.
so let's say Betty Baker, we're going to say her password is password01,
Okay.
which actually I think we'll go ahead and do a capital P so it doesn't yell at me.
Okay.
Password. Then we go /add, and we give our domain, which is going to be YC_RYCCNT.
120.
Or what is
Okay.
it?
120.
No, I can't remember what my domain name is here. PUSD-YC. Oh, look. So this is, now it knows it's not a local user, it's a domain user, so it's not going to add it as a local user. It's going to put it into Active Directory. Then we can say, we don't need to say active, that's assumed. If you want to deactivate the account, you can set that. You can say, you can configure times. There's several options here. I'm trying to think of all the options here, but anyways, we're just going to do
Oh,
that.
you mean times like what times I'm allowed to be on?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Wow.
Oops.
Yeah, I've always loved using things like PowerShell or DOS or BASIC, or I used to write batch files in BASIC.
Oh, I didn't run it as an administrator. That's why it's giving me a problem.
Okay.
So I need to run PowerShell as an administrator to run that command.
Okay.
Let's see. So let's go ahead and do this. Domain. YC.
No, it's PUSD-YC, isn't it?
Let me.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Oh, you know what? It's going to automatically put it in the domain. There we go. So now, if I go to users.
There it is. Okay, cool.
So, and now from here, if I want to, I can, there's commands as well for net. The net user command will allow you to put it into an organizational unit. Like for instance, I have an OU here called students for all my student accounts.
Mm-hmm.
You can do commands that will let you add it to a group so that you don't have to do all that. So if you create your script in a PowerShell, or if you create your a PowerShell script to create all your users, it really does save a lot of time versus going in and painstakingly adding all of these users. That's how I actually created all of these users here.
Well, how would you add a user this way? I mean, am I going to go through a lab and do that?
Yeah,
or?
you will. You will.
Okay.
That's why I showed you in PowerShell, because there's actually a lab that shows you this. But if you look up here.
Okay, is that how? Okay. All right, got it. All right.
And then you just go through the process of that. It makes you create a password. You can specify whether or not the user has to change the password at first login, which is a good idea when you're creating a generic login for everybody.
Right.
You can, this gives you a few more options. Well, PowerShell does give you these options. The net user command does give you these options. I just don't remember all the arguments for the command
right
off the top of my head. But if I was about to do this and I was creating a script, I would go online and Google it and find out exactly what I need to do in order to get my accounts exactly how I want them. So it does help to do it that way. So when I created all these users, I was like, well, I could go through and painstakingly add them one at a time, or I could just run a script that does it for me. And so I created a script that created all my users for me automatically. And so that's a very handy way of creating users in Active Directory. The other major benefit, which we're not going to cover today, cover in Chapter 4 rather, is group policies. This is something that we look at in I believe it's in Chapter 5, but group policies are a huge benefit to using Active Directory domains. Basically, Marcia, you took CNT 115, or I'm sorry, 110.
Right.
You remember kind of that one chapter where you also took CNT 115 as well, where we used local policy, local group policy to set up password policy, right?
Yeah. I think we had to do that on our final, didn't we?
I believe so. Yeah, we had to do that on the final in CNT 110, and we also did it for a lab in CNT 115.
Okay.
And so basically what group policy management allows you to do is it allows you to combine your Active Directory users with policies that you configure for those users. So for instance, I have a student group.
Mm-hmm.
This is an Active Directory group with all of my students added to it. So if I go into here and I look at members, you see all my students are added to there.
Okay.
Now, when those users sign in, this policy applies to that user because they're in this group here.
Right. Okay.
Right? And so when I create a policy, if I edit this group policy, this is basically like making a change to their local policies from here. And so when they sign into their computer using their Active Directory username and password, their domain username and password, they have policies that apply to them that I can control from here. So it creates a large it creates a good amount of security that you can set up these policies that say you can and can't access these different things.
Right.
And so you sort of restrict and allow based on how secure you want things to be. And so in my classroom, I've really had to actually crack down on this lately because of students kind of not focusing, not paying attention in class. And it's interesting. I'm teaching the same class to my high school students, and they're starting to apply their knowledge to getting around my stuff. So I've had to really crack down on my group policies and lock them out of stuff so that they can't do things that they would like to. And so these group policies can really benefit you in a lot of different ways, especially when you're looking at administering a lot of different users, hundreds of users. You can kind of say, okay, well, I don't want to have to constantly be going to everybody's computer to fix problems because they installed this or did that or changed this thing. And so what you do is you set up these policies that prevent them from being able to do that stuff. And so it really does. That's part of the power of Active Directory is the combination of centralized user administration, but also centralized computer administration. You can control what computers are able to do and what users they are able to do on their computers from one central place. So it's really, really handy. And so that's what this chapter teaches is Active Directory. And that's where Windows becomes a lot more powerful in a corporate environment, is when you install Active Directory, when you start to use these group policies. And we'll look at some of them, some of the group policies in later chapters, and definitely more of the group policies as you advance on in the courses, in the Windows Server courses. But yeah, group policies, this is where the real power in Windows Server in a domain environment comes in. And if you look at just the sheer number of policies that you can set, it's insane. And trying to figure out, okay, where's the policy for this or that, or you can say things like, okay, I want to set a what's a good example? Maybe I want to set a background, a permanent background.
Okay.
You find the policy for it, right? You
mean like a logo in the background or a watermark type thing or something like that?
Okay. There's group policies for all kinds of stuff. And once you create them and enforce them, now once the user signs on the next time, that policy is now forced on their computer. So for instance, force a specific start background or something to that effect. You can lock all this stuff down. And there are so many group policy objects that it's crazy. Like you couldn't even to remember them all and know exactly where it's at. You kind of have to have a general idea of that. I think there's a group policy for that.
Yeah.
And then Google it. Is there a group policy for such and such a thing? What's the policy? Where is it at? And how do I configure it? And so sometimes they always give a description of what enabling that policy will do, but sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge to figure out, okay, do I need to enable or do I need to disable this thing or not configured? How is it going to work best? And
Right.
so once you sort of play around with group policies, you start to figure that stuff out. Now, some administrators, they get really, really into group policies, and I think you can take it over the top because you find out, oh, shoot, that person actually does need access to this or that or whatever. So it can be a little bit of a challenge if you start getting overboard. Though that being said, if you really want to, you can be as hardcore as you want and really dig in and figure out all the group policies you can set. You noticed on my group policy, there's very few things actually set, and that's going to be changing pretty soon here. But because of the fact that I'm dealing with high school students and they like to.
Because they're actually learning and they're actually trying things, and that's kind of a good thing, actually, that they're interested enough to try.
Exactly, and so I'll do things every once in a while, and I'll say, the first person who figures out a way around my filter gets bonus points.
Cool.
So yeah, so I actually this is something else from future chapters, is playing around with DNS. So I actually created a sort of cheesy way of filtering websites. It's a blacklist. I can add anything that I want into here. But basically, I blocked Google by simply creating DNS records for Google that point to the wrong place.
Really? Because
Yeah.
you don't want them to be able to look up the answers, or? Well,
there's that, but mostly it was just to challenge them, and I like to screw around with them a little bit.
Oh, that's fun. Okay.
Yeah, so I blocked Google, I blocked Bing, and I basically just played around with them, and I said the first person who can figure out a way around my filter gets bonus points. And so somebody was doing the DNS chapter. They got to chapter 5, which is where DNS is covered. And they go, hey, I think I know what it is. And they went around and they showed me, and they go, yeah, I got it. And so they got around my DNS filter because they were able to change their DNS server to something else. And that did the trick for getting them around that. So
cool.
But yeah, Windows Server is quite fun, and a domain environment is a fun thing to set up and configure and start figuring out once you start to get your head around some of these things. So the labs are really geared towards introducing you to the concept, and then after that, it's like you kind of got to be self-taught on some of this stuff, play around with it, and
right.
You know what I mean? So
well, that's kind of what we're doing in this class anyway, right? I mean, the book's pretty good. It's very explanatory, and we're doing the labs on our own, and
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, somebody just entered.
David.
Hi, David. You're kind of showing up at the tail end of our discussions here, but welcome anyway. I see you were trying to get in about 2 o'clock, but that was a little early. In any event, we're about to wrap it up. Unless Marcia, do you have any other questions?
I really don't. Thanks for helping me get that local user thing done. I was really stuck. I knew what I needed to do. I just didn't know how to do it.
Sure. Well, in any event, I guess I'll give you guys a word of the day.
Okay.
I think we'll make it Active Directory. 2 words.
Sounds good.
All right. Cool. So there you go, Dave. Sorry you missed the conversation, but you got the word of the day. So you happen to jump in right in the nick of time. Anyway, I will. I'm gonna close out the session now, and I will see you not next week, but the week after next. I'll send out an email for everybody.
Okay, Dave.
There's not gonna be one.
Thanks a bunch.
All righty.
Hey, wait a minute. The next week, won't that be spring break?
Oh yes. So
should we do it then? I mean, I'll be available. I don't care, but
nah. We won't have one for 2 more weeks.
Okay. So we'll see you then on the 29th?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Good.
See you then.
All right. See you, Marcia.
Bye, Dave.